The prairie night was cold, the wind cutting like a blade. Sarah, a widow who lived on the edge of the settlement, had just finished securing the shutters when she heard a faint thud outside. Lantern in hand, she opened her door. There, sprawled across the dirt, lay a man in torn clothes, his face pale, his breath ragged. In his arms was a bundle, no bigger than a loaf of bread, wrapped in a ragged blanket. The faint cry of a newborn pierced the silence. Sarah froze. She recognized the man, Eli Turner, once a respected rancher, now shamed and exiled after a land feud turned violent. Men like him weren't welcome in these parts anymore. But here he was, broken, desperate, with an innocent child pressed to his chest. Sarah knelt, her hands trembling, and saw the baby's blue lips, crying weakly for warmth. Her heart pounded. Taking them in could mean trouble. Harboring an exile was enough to turn neighbors against her. Yet, as the baby let out another faint cry, Sarah knew she couldn't turn away. She pulled Eli and the infant inside, laying him by the fire. As she pressed water to his lips, Eli's eyes fluttered open. His voice cracked. "Please, don't let them take him. He's all I've got." Sarah didn't answer. She only tightened her grip on the baby, whispering softly, "You're safe now." The wind howled outside as if warning her, this choice would change everything. Like and subscribe if you want to follow this story of survival, redemption, and hope on the frontier. The fire crackled, throwing long shadows across the cabin walls. Sarah laid the baby down on a folded quilt, her hands moving quickly to warm some goat's milk. The little one's cries echoed through the cabin, sharp and desperate, but softened once the bottle touched his lips. Eli Turner stirred on the cot by the fire. His clothes were stiff with dust and blood, his skin gray from exhaustion. Sarah studied him. He was gaunt, sunken-eyed, but beneath the grime still bore the look of a man who once commanded herds and land. When his eyes finally opened fully, they settled on the baby first, then on her. "I didn't mean to come here," he rasped. "My legs gave out. I had nowhere else." Sarah's jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be here, Eli. Folks won't take kindly to me harboring in exile. They'll say I've lost my sense, taking in a man chased from his own ranch." Eli coughed, his body shaking. "Then send me away, but please, not him. Not the boy." He tried to sit up, but his strength failed. His hand fell limp against the quilt where his son lay. Sarah looked from father to child, torn. She had lived alone since her husband's death, surviving by her own grit and skill. Trouble was something she avoided. Yet this helpless rancher and his newborn, was no ordinary trouble. She sighed, pulling a blanket tighter around the infant. "You're not fit to walk. And the boy won't last a night out there." Her voice steadied, though her heart raced. "For now, you stay. But Eli Turner, mark my words, if danger comes to my door, I'll hold you responsible." Outside, a dog barked in the distance, followed by the faint echo of hooves on hard dirt. Sarah's blood ran cold. Someone was out there, someone searching. The hoofbeats grew louder, steady and deliberate, until they circled near Sarah's small cabin. The baby whimpered, sensing the tension. Sarah blew out the lantern and pressed a finger to her lips, signaling Eli to stay silent. Through the cracks in the shutters, she saw 3 riders. Their shapes were cloaked in the moonlight, rifles slung across their shoulders. They weren't neighbors stopping by. They were hunters, men looking for Eli Turner. One of them dismounted, boots crunching over the frosted ground. He rapped his knuckles against her door, each knock sharp as a gunshot. "Even in, Miss Sarah," the man called, his voice rough but polite enough to hide the malice beneath. "We're looking for a certain rancher. Word is, he's drifting around these parts. You seen anyone pass by tonight?" Sarah's throat tightened. The fire inside her cabin hissed, betraying the faint warmth within. The baby stirred with a soft cry, muffled only by her quick hand. Eli, still weak, tried to push himself up. His lips moved, whispering, "Don't tell them. Please." His eyes were wild with fear, not for himself, but for the child. Sarah steadied her breath. She was no stranger to hardship. Widows on the frontier learned to stand firm or be swept away. She called out through the door, her voice even, "No one's come through here. Just me, same as always." A pause. The man lingered, boots shifting in the dirt. Then he leaned closer, his tone sharper. "Funny thing. We tracked footprints leadin' right near your place. Man carrying a bundle. You sure you ain't mistaken, ma'am?" Her heart pounded like a drum. She could feel Eli's desperate gaze burning into her. The choice was hers. Betray him to keep herself safe, or lie and risk the wrath of armed men. Sarah's hand brushed the wooden cross hanging by her door, her husband's old keepsake. She straightened her back and spoke through the timber. I said I ain't seen no one. If you got doubts, ride on and ask the next farm. But you won't find him here. For a long moment, silence stretched. The riders muttered among themselves. Finally, the man spat in the dirt, swung onto his horse, and the group rode off into the dark. Only then did Sarah's knees weaken. She shut her eyes, whispering a shaky prayer as the baby settled back into restless sleep. Behind her, Eli whispered hoarsely, "You saved us." But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. By taking him in, she had set herself against dangerous men. Men who wouldn't stop until Eli Turner was either captured or dead. The cabin was quiet again, save for the baby's soft breathing. Sarah leaned against the wall, her heart still hammering from the encounter. Eli tried to sit up, wincing with every movement. She rushed to steady him, but he shook his head. "I have to tell you," he said, his voice raw, "so you'll know what kind of trouble you've brought into your home." Sarah folded her arms, standing over him. "Then speak. I don't take kindly to secrets under my roof." Eli's eyes darkened. He looked toward the flames, as though the fire itself might judge him. "I was framed," he began slowly. "They said I stole cattle from the Whitmore ranch. But I didn't. I swear it. The Whitmores wanted my land, rich soil, water running deep. They bribed the sheriff, spread their lies, and when I stood up to them, they drove me out." Sarah frowned. The Whitmores were powerful in these parts, their reach stretching to every saloon and courthouse. If Eli had crossed them, no wonder he was hunted like an outlaw. "And the baby?" she asked, her eyes softening as they drifted to the child nestled in blankets. Eli's voice broke. "His mother, my wife, Clara, she died giving birth. I buried her under the cottonwoods, and before I could even grieve, the Whitmores sent their men. They wanted me gone for good." He swallowed hard. "All I had left was him." Sarah's gaze lingered on the baby's tiny hands, curled like fragile buds. A pang of grief struck her. She remembered the children she and her husband never had, dreams buried with him years ago. Eli's eyes searched hers. "I won't bring danger to your door longer than I must. But until I get my strength back, I beg you, let me stay." For his sake. The fire popped, sending sparks upward. Sarah turned away, staring at the shuttered window. She had just lied to armed men. The Whitmores weren't the kind to forgive. Yet looking at Eli, broken but defiant, and the child, innocent and clinging to life, she felt something stir inside her, something she thought long dead. "Hope." At last, she whispered, "You can stay. But hear me, Eli Turner. If we're to face this storm, you'll tell me everything, and you'll fight for that boy. Because now, your fight is mine too." Eli bowed his head, tears glistening in the firelight. "You've given us more than shelter, Sarah. You've given us a chance." But outside, the prairie wind carried voices, men's voices. The riders had not gone far. At dawn, the prairie stretched wide and silent, but Sarah felt no peace. The riders' tracks still marked the soil outside her cabin. She knew men like them didn't give up. They would circle back, perhaps with more numbers, until Eli Turner was in their grasp. Eli was stronger this morning, though still pale. He sat by the fire, rocking the baby gently. The sight struck Sarah. Rough hands of a rancher holding a child with a tenderness that didn't match the rumors of a violent exile. "You'll need more than rest to face what's coming," Sarah said firmly, setting bread and coffee on the table. "If they find you here again, they won't knock polite next time." Eli nodded, his jaw tightening. "The Whitmores don't forgive. They'll burn your cabin if they think you're helping me." He hesitated, glancing at her. "I never wanted to drag you into this. You could still turn me in, Sarah. Folks would thank you for it." Sarah shot him a sharp look. "And leave a newborn to their mercy? I may live alone, but I ain't heartless." Eli's eyes softened, but his expression hardened again at the sound of distant gunfire, practice shots from men camped not far off. They were sending a message. That night, Sarah took her husband's old rifle from the wall, cleaned the barrel, and set it by the door. Eli watched her, guilt and gratitude flickering across his face. "You don't owe me this fight," he murmured. Sarah's voice was steady. "No, I don't. But maybe I owe it to myself. I've been surviving, not living, since my husband passed. You and that baby, you've reminded me what it means to stand for something again." The baby stirred, letting out a soft cry. Eli hushed him, whispering promises only a father could give. But Sarah's eyes stayed fixed on the window. Out there, in the moonlit distance, she caught sight of a fire, the riders' camp. The storm was not days away. It was already on her doorstep. The night air was heavy with tension. Every creak of the timbers, every whisper of wind against the shutters made Sarah's skin prickle. She had lived alone for years, yet never had her home felt so fragile, so exposed. Eli sat with the baby pressed against his chest, rocking gently. His eyes were sunken with exhaustion, but they never left the window. "They'll come tonight," he said quietly. "I can feel it." Sarah tightened her grip on the rifle. "Then let them come. They'll find this door ain't as easy to break as they think." But beneath her steady words, fear gnawed at her. She wasn't a soldier. She was a widow with a plow hand's strength and an old rifle. If 3, 4, or more men stormed her cabin, how long could she hold them off? Hours passed, the cabin lit only by the fire's glow. Then, a sound. The faintest crunch of boots outside the window. Sarah raised her hand sharply. Eli froze, clutching the baby close. A shadow moved across the crack in the shutters. Then another. Voices murmured low outside, too faint to catch the words, but the tone was clear, predators circling prey. Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears. She nodded toward the cellar hatch beneath the floorboards. Eli understood. He lowered himself with the baby, every movement agonizingly slow. When the hatch closed, the cabin fell eerily still. The knock came again, not polite this time, hard, demanding. "Sarah," a voice called, the same man from before. His tone dripped with false courtesy. "We know he's here. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Hand over Eli Turner, and no harm will come to you." Sarah swallowed hard, her finger brushing the rifle's trigger. "I told you once before, no one's here but me." Silence. Then the crunch of boots retreating, or so it seemed. Suddenly, the back window shattered. A man lunged through, glass and splinters raining across the floor. Sarah spun, rifle raised. The firelight gleamed on the intruder's knife. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The rifle's thunder shook the cabin. The intruder crashed against the wall, clutching his shoulder, blood soaking through his shirt. He snarled, staggering forward despite the wound. Sarah pumped the lever, chambering another round, her hands steady even as her heart pounded. From beneath the floorboards, the baby cried out, a tiny, piercing wail that cut through the chaos. The sound froze everyone in place. The man's eyes darted toward the hatch. "So it's true," he spat. "The exile and his brat are here." He raised his knife again, but Sarah fired once more. The shot cracked through the smoke, sending him sprawling onto the floorboards, still. The front door splintered as 2 more men burst in, rifles ready. Sarah dove behind the table as wood splinters flew, bullets tearing through the walls. The baby wailed louder, Eli's muffled voice beneath the floor pleading for silence. "Sarah," one of the riders shouted, his voice rough. "Don't be a fool. Step aside and you won't end up like him." Her jaw clenched. She grabbed the lantern from the mantel and hurled it toward the doorway. It shattered in a burst of fire, flames licking up the wooden frame. The men cursed, stumbling back as smoke filled the cabin. Eli chose that moment. The cellar hatch slammed open, and he crawled out, baby in one arm, a pistol gripped tight in the other. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with fury. "You want me?" he shouted hoarsely over the crackle of fire. "Then you'll have to go through me." The riders hesitated, squinting through the smoke. For the first time, their prey stood tall before them, not just an exile, but a father with nothing left to lose. Sarah stepped to his side, rifle raised, the fire casting both of them in a fierce glow. Widow and outcast, standing shoulder to shoulder. Outside, more hoofbeats thundered closer. Reinforcements. This wasn't over. It was only beginning. The cabin filled with smoke and firelight, but Sarah and Eli held their ground. The baby whimpered softly against Eli's chest, wrapped close as if shielded by his father's defiance. Outside, the pounding of hooves grew louder. A dozen riders, maybe more, gathered in the darkness. Their shadows swayed across the prairie as torches lit the night. Sarah's gut twisted. "We can't hold this place," she whispered fiercely. "If they surround us, we'll be ash before morning." Eli's grip tightened on the pistol. His face was set with grim resolve. "Then we fight our way out. I'd rather fall standing than crawl back to the Whitmore's mercy." The door shook under another slam, dust raining from the beams. Sarah glanced around the cabin. Her late husband's tools, the patched quilts, the small wooden cross nailed by the window. It wasn't much, but it was her life. And now it was about to become a battlefield. "Sarah," Eli said suddenly, his voice lower, steadier. "If I don't make it, promise me one thing. Raise him as your own. Give him the life they'd never let me give." Her throat tightened. She looked at him, this broken rancher who had stumbled to her door with nothing but a newborn and a heart full of desperation. She saw not an outlaw, but a man willing to give everything for his child. "I won't make promises about dying," she snapped, loading another round into the rifle. "We're both walking out of this alive, Eli Turner. You hear me?" The door splintered. Men poured in, shouting, rifles raised. Sarah fired, the recoil slamming into her shoulder. Eli's pistol cracked in reply. The cabin erupted in chaos, smoke, fire, blood, and the roar of desperate survival. Through it all, the baby cried, his tiny voice carrying above the gunfire like a plea to heaven. Like and subscribe to follow this tale of survival, sacrifice, and redemption on the wild frontier. The cabin shook with violence. Gunfire split the air, bullets tearing through walls, splinters stinging Sarah's face. She fired back, dropping one rider as he lunged through the doorway. Eli's pistol barked beside her, each shot careful, measured, every bullet meant for survival. But there were too many. Shadows loomed outside, torches blazing. The men shouted orders, circling like wolves. "Smoke 'em out. Burn it to the ground." Sarah's heart lurched. The flames from the shattered lantern had already spread to the walls. The cabin that had been her refuge was becoming her tomb. Eli staggered to the window, pistol cracking again. His knees buckled, nearly sending him to the floor. Sarah caught him, her rifle still warm in her other hand. "You can't fall now," she hissed. The baby's cries rose, shrill and terrified. Smoke thickened, making Sarah's eyes water. She looked toward the back, the cellar hatch. It was their only chance. "Eli," she said quickly, "the tunnel. My husband dug it, years ago. It runs out past the well. We can get through if we move now." Eli's eyes widened, then narrowed in determination. He clutched the baby tighter, nodding once. Together, they scrambled toward the hatch as another bullet shattered the mantel. Sarah yanked the trapdoor open. Smoke billowed downward, filling the narrow passage, but it was escape or nothing. "Go," she urged. Eli lowered himself in first, baby pressed tight against him. Sarah followed, pulling the hatch shut above them just as another crash shook the cabin. They crawled through the tunnel on hands and knees, coughing, choking, guided only by faint moonlight seeping through cracks ahead. The ground trembled as hooves pounded overhead. Men shouted, voices furious when they realized the cabin was empty. At last, they emerged by the well, hidden in the brush. Sarah hauled Eli up, her chest heaving. The baby whimpered softly, soothed against his father's chest. Behind them, her cabin blazed against the night, torches feeding its fire until it collapsed in sparks and ash. Sarah's eyes stung, not just from smoke, but from grief. Her home was gone. But Eli turned to her, voice ragged yet fierce. "You saved us. And I swear, Sarah, I'll make this right. For you, for him, for all of it." Sarah tightened her grip on the rifle, her face lit by the flames of her burning past. There was no going back now. Only forward, into war. The prairie was lit by the flames of Sarah's burning cabin, smoke curling into the night sky like a signal fire. The riders shouted angrily, their torches swinging as they searched the darkness. But Sarah, Eli, and the baby were already slipping through the brush, hidden by shadows and the howl of the wind. They moved slowly, every step a battle. Eli, pale and wounded, carried his son close, his breath ragged but determined. Sarah walked at his side, rifle ready, her grief burning as fiercely as her resolve. When they reached the ridge overlooking the settlement, they stopped. The baby stirred, pressing his tiny face against Eli's chest. For a long moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the distant roar of the fire devouring Sarah's home. "That cabin was my life," Sarah whispered, her eyes glistening. "I built it with my husband's hands. Now it's ash." Eli turned to her, his voice low but steady. "And yet you saved mine. You saved his." He nodded at the child. "What you lost tonight, I'll repay, if it takes my last breath." Sarah studied him, this man branded in exile, once despised, now carrying the weight of both his child and her sacrifice. She realized then that fate had bound them together. "We'll find a place," she said firmly, lifting her chin. "Somewhere they can't reach us. But you'll need to prove you're more than the Whitmore's outcast. You'll need to fight for your son. And for yourself." Eli nodded, eyes burning with new resolve. "Then I will." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of smoke away into the night. Behind them, the cabin was gone, but before them stretched a horizon wide and untamed. Sarah gripped her rifle, Eli held his newborn, and together they stepped into the darkness, not as widow in exile, but as unlikely allies bound by loss, courage, and the fragile spark of hope. Their war with the Whitmores was only beginning, but so was something else, something neither of them had expected when he collapsed at her door. Life.